me the word, gives me the words to say. And if he wants me to look like a fool, I will too. So it's whatever he wants. That I already figured that out a long time ago. And so far, so good. And sometimes I've looked like a fool, sometimes I don't. But anyways, it's sure good to be here with you, with people who love Alcoholics Anonymous. Y'all are my people. I fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous not long after I hated it. And when I got here, I was not a happy camper. Before I got to AA, I called myself a Bubbaite, and I believed in Bubbaism. And then I found out in the big book it talks about self-centeredness, and that's exactly what that was, total self-centeredness. And in the early meetings, I would leave when people would talk about God. I just got up and left. I didn't need that. That's weak people need God. I don't need that stuff. Of course, after the meeting, they're going to have ice cream, going to have coffee and talk, and heck, I'm going to get a drink. I couldn't stay sober with that attitude that I had, is that I could not understand how something in a glass had control over me. I have a choice whether I drink or not. That's what I kept saying. As long as I had that choice, I drank. I never understood that powerless until a while later. And when I understood that is I got a brain says left, have a drink, and I say, okay. I mean, it's pretty much that simple. And so anyway, I was not going to get serious about AA because I didn't think it was necessary. But my wife had come home from a halfway house, and the night before she got there, I went in the cabinet and took some booze out, poured me a big cup, went and sat in my bedroom, locked the deadbolts on the door so the kids couldn't come in. And I sat there and I went to take that drink, and a thought came to me that I don't have to drink for anybody or at anybody. And I got up and I went and poured that drink out. And that was August the 5th of 1985. And I hadn't had a drink since. And I'd never had a thought like that. It wasn't until I worked through the steps, and as I was working through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, that I could see and recognize that I had had a spiritual experience that day, even though I didn't even know it. I had no idea. All I know is my thinking about drinking changed that day. And the more I went to meetings and the longer and the more I got into the steps, the more I started realizing that's what that was, that I had been given a gift, a free gift. And I think it's available to any of us who are willing to accept it, because I had been given that gift several times and I threw it away. I wasn't willing to accept the gift of sobriety. So anyway, this particular time I was ready to accept it, and but I wasn't quite ready to do AA. And so Helen was working for a athletic department at USL at the time in Lafayette, Louisiana, UL. And we went to the USL Tulane game in New Orleans, and they asked me if I would take the coaches' wives out on Bourbon Street while they watched films. And I said, sure. And Helen and I took out them, and we went down Bourbon Street, and I took them to eat and all that stuff. And we got back to the Superdome, and they had a big keg party going on. And Helen looks at me, she says, I got to get out of here. And I said, me too. I said, I don't want to, if I stay here, I'm going to drink. So I need to get out of here. We went back to the hotel the next morning. I got up and I'll go in the bathroom in the hotel and I'd count my money. And then I'd come back out and talk to her about packing up. And then I'd go back in the bathroom, count my money. I couldn't remember how much I'd had each time. And while I was in there, I said this prayer, which is funny because I don't believe in God, and I'm saying a prayer. I said, God, I don't know if I'm an alcoholic or not. I know I don't want to drink today, but I know I have to drink today. And my plan was to put Helen in a car, in a cab, her sponsor arranged to pick her up at noon to go to a noon meeting. And I went down and opened up the door to the cab, and she got in. And that was the last thing I remember for a period of a few minutes. I had what the big book refers to a strange mental blank spot. And when I came out of that, I was in the back seat of that same car about a block and a half, 2 blocks away from the hotel, and we were headed to an AA meeting. I got to the AA meeting, and the fellow chairing the meeting gave me how it works to read. Now, 30, 45 minutes earlier, I'm asking God if I'm an alcoholic or not, and I'm sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous reading how it works. And that is when I took step 1 and knew I was powerless over alcohol. In my best efforts, I'm going to die drunk. And I got willing to seek a sponsor that had brought meetings into that treatment center. And he and I got together. I asked him if he would help me. I was too egotistic to say sponsor. I said, will you help me? And he said, yeah. And he said, meet him at his house. And I went and met him at his house. And we started talking, and I said, Bobby, I got this problem with AA. I don't believe in God. And he says, whether you believe in God or not has nothing to do with the fact if there's a God or not. Your best thinking got you to AA. You're a failure as a husband, a father, a drunken at work. You want to trust that same brain that we're using for the best of your ability. You want to trust that when it comes to God. And nobody ever talked to me that way, but he did. But you know what? He knew something. He wasn't. He knew if I was there to get help, there was hope. He'd laugh. I'd come to him with a problem. He just laughs at me because I didn't realize for years, but I finally realized that if I'm there with them, I'm probably not going to go drink. I'm there with him, and he can laugh about that and see the grace of God working in my life when I couldn't see it. And so, anyway, I had that spiritual experience in New Orleans, and I came back, and my sponsor said that things like throw your keys or your shoes or your slippers under the bed at night, and when you get down there to get them, say a few words. He's trying to teach me to pray, right? So I'd get down there and I'd say a few words, and the next thing I know, it's just going out in the air, going nowhere. I'm like, nah, man, this is just a waste of time. And I told him, I said, this is a waste of time. He said, I don't care if you believe, I just want you to put it in action. And he said, whether you believe in God or not, what we're going to do is go through this big book, and you will come to believe in a God of your understanding in your own time. And I said, okay, I'm willing to do that. Well, what happened is, as we were going through the book, we got to spiritual experience. It just was read. And in the spiritual experience, I'm thinking I have to have this spiritual experience as the solution to alcoholism. So what is it? I can't have that. I don't believe in all this stuff. And I don't believe in that kind of stuff. And we turn back to the back of the book, and when it talks about spiritual experience, and it says it shows that a personality change sufficient to bring about recovery. Is that a possibility? Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. And so that's opened that door a little more and a little more. Yeah, I could swallow that. And one of the things that happened in my fifth step is that after I finished my fifth step and I went home and I spent that hour, and I got down on my knees and I thanked God from the bottom of my heart that I knew him better. And I realized I knew him better. And that started that journey deeper and deeper. And then he worked with drunks all the time. So we were making 12-step calls all the time. He'd call me up, and there's a wet drunk we're going to pick up. He'd just call up, say hello. He said, come over, and hang up. And Helen said, what do you want? I said, I don't know. He said, come over. So I'd go meet him, and we were going on a 12-step call. In those days, we had a lot of 12-step calls. I was unemployable when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, pretty much. My first 2 years of sobriety, I delivered newspapers in the middle of the night because I didn't really have to deal with people. And I had become somewhat dangerously antisocial. And so I was delivering these newspapers in the middle of the night. And I stopped to go to the bathroom. It was at a filling station. And I walked into that bathroom down kind of like a hall. And I walked down there, and as I did, there was nothing but case after case, open glass windows of beer, all the way down to the bathroom and back. And I got in the bathroom and I didn't know how I was going to get out. And I'm 6 months sober. And I'm sitting there and I don't know what to do. And a prayer wells up in me. I didn't think about praying. The prayer just came into me. God, help me get out of here. And I had another one of those strange mental blank spots. The next thing I remember, I'm driving out the driveway. God did for me what I could not do for myself. And I'm starting to see that. Even when I got sober and hadn't drank for a period of time, all of a sudden I realized it had been a long time since I thought about a drink. And that blew me away because I constantly thought about how to manage my life. And he says I have to have this spiritual experience. So, part of that is going to include all the steps, not just one step or two steps. It's going to take the whole thing. So anyway, he got me to read page 86, 87, and 88. He said, read that every morning and every night. And so I started reading 86, 85, 86, 87, 88. And I kept reading that. And I read it and I read it. I read it for months. And then one day it dawned on me. I think I'm supposed to be doing it, not reading it. I mean, it took me months to realize that, because it says, we ask God, we ask God, we ask. Those are all prayers. And I never did any of the prayers. I just read the words. It's kind of like the big book. I didn't understand it when I read it by myself. I knew the words, I knew the sentences, but I couldn't put it all together. But doing it with other people, I've been able to learn a lot more about the big book and share that experience with others as they shared it with me. And anyway, that started that path of prayer and meditation for me on a more consistent basis, as doing 86, 87, 88. And then after a period of years, I'm sitting there doing at page 86, and I'm looking at it, and I said, well, let me put it into action. So into action, I'm saying, okay, my plans for the day. On awakening, let me think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. At that point, we'd stop and I'd consider my plans for the day. I have to do this, go here, do that. And we'd kind of jot them down, write them down. And also our book says we invited others in their friends and wives to join us in prayer and meditation. And so Helen and I do it together. And if we had sponsees, we'd do it with a bunch of us together and get down and go through this. And we'd make our plans for the day. And then I guess a number of years later, I was reading it again and I'm going, it says, on awakening, let's think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. But then it has these words, before we begin. And I'm like, before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially divorcing it from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. Oh, I'm supposed to be aligning my thinking before I do the plans for the day. That's what, and it like, I mean, I'm years sober and I'm just figuring this stuff out. So I'm a slow learner sometimes. And so anyway, I started doing that, and I use those prayers every morning, along with the third step, seventh step, with other prayers and some outside reading, some other books. In fact, tonight I have Bible study tonight, except I'm here with y'all. And I've been doing that for about 9 years with my dad. He invited me to go, and it only took me about 4 years for me to say yes. I'm a slow learner. And so what I did was take it like AA is I went, they shared, and I shared whatever we shared. And I take what at AA, I listen to what's being said, but I don't have to get in any conflict whatsoever about it. It's not necessary. As a friend of mine, Don Pritz, used to say, you don't have to defend the truth. It stands up all by itself. And so I started realizing that I did not have to defend my position all the time. And So anyway, and over on page 87, and it talks about we usually conclude the prayer meditation with a prayer that be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, and given whatever need to take care of such problems. To me, it sounds like a third step prayer to me, and I say the third step prayer there. And it says we ask especially for freedom from self-will and are careful to pray, make no request for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. And so what I found is the four-step prayer fits that exactly. In the four-step prayer, it says we ask God, prayer, we ask God to show us and to show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. So I'm asking for me to be able to show that tolerance, asking God to help me show that so I can be of help to somebody else. And to me, that fits exactly in this. So it makes sense for me to be able to pray for myself if others will be helped, and not pray for my own selfish ends, because I used to do that. I'd say, God, get me out of this deal, get me out of this. And you'd be surprised how many deals he got me out of it. Then as soon as he did, I was done with it. I just need you when I'm in a crisis. I don't need you the rest of the time. And I found out that is all wrong. Delivering newspapers in the middle of the night for that 2 years, I'd have newcomers that would ride with me that couldn't sleep. And we'd ride in the van at night. And I found myself talking about two things. I talked about AA and God. And I just talked today, I talked to a guy's wife had cancer and had surgery. And he was calling and giving me an update on how she's doing. And he and I would ride in that van together and we'd talk. And then for a while, he says, can we not talk about God anymore? And I said, well, sure. We don't have to talk about God anymore. And so we'd talk about something about AA, and within 3 minutes, we're back talking about God again, And, for me, who did not, I was never an atheist. I never tried to prove it wasn't that important to me to prove it. I just didn't care. I didn't believe, I was an agnostic, or super agnostic. And how could I be agnostic? I used to get mad at the people who would drive their bikes and come and knock on the door or stop, and talk to me at the airport about Jesus or about whatever religion, or where they talk to me. And I get mad and insult them, slam the door, whatever. It was rude as hell. And then after I've been sober, I realized here's somebody coming to me, trying to offer me the best thing they've got in their life, and I'm being rude to them. I mean, how egocentric and crazy is that? And so today I don't have to believe any of it. All I have to do is thank you, and I'm busy, or I need to go, or whatever, or I can listen. Thank you for coming by. I don't have to participate with that, but it is not a requirement for me to be ugly anymore to other people. And I've hurt enough people in my life, and I don't want to hurt anymore. And I think through prayer and meditation, that all changes, and putting it into action through the steps. Let's see. We've also read a lot of different books, different meditation books. Helen and I read, we usually have a book going that we'll read every morning, and maybe read a paragraph or usually a chapter, and then we'll meditate on that for a while. And we'll read in the big book and meditate on that for a while. And so, I think it was yesterday morning, we just set a timer for 15 minutes. And we sat there and meditated for 15 minutes. And on what we had read, because I'm trying to have God put these sane thoughts into my head instead of these insane thoughts. Because self-pity and dishonest motives, if I don't ask God to remove those in the morning right away, I can get into them in a hurry. Because it's what about me? What can I get? Me against the world. I got to do this. I got to do that. And if I can get into all that stuff, I forget my whole purpose. My purpose is to be a maximum service to God and the people about me. It's that simple. And doing prayer and meditation helps align me on that. And the other thing it talks about in prayer and meditation, one of the things that we were reading about earlier is, let's see, is that as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. At night, that's a measure of how I did during the day. How many times did I say, God, I need this, or God, your will be done, because it's not going my way. I talked to a guy today. He's got the same issue I got. My group voted against me. They voted to do something that I thought was a bad idea, but you know what? It was just Helen and I. We voted and they all voted the other way. And I went to my sponsor when that happened in my home group, and I said, Bobby, I said, they all voted the other way. What are we going to do? And he says, well, this group was doing just fine before you got here, and they'll be doing just fine after you're gone. He let me know that the group conscience is in charge, not me. And I was able to help a guy today with the same thing. He was a GSR, and he was getting confused on what his job was. And his job is to be of service to his group, not to run his group and not to tell his group what to do. And so, you know, and I talked to him about prayer and meditation as well, about doing some prayers with that, and asking God to help him get through this, and the acceptance of the group conscience, and that he needs to make amends to go clean that up. That he said some stuff in the meeting, and he just needs to go straighten that out. It's amazing how we can, that quick. The biggest fights I've ever seen in AA are two people who think they know what's best for AA. Usually it's not people trying to do damage to AA that are fighting. And that's the biggest fights I've ever seen. And, and usually those two people, one, at least one, and maybe two, and I've been part of that, me, it's out of fear. I found something that works for me. I got 6 grandkids that come along. I want AA to be here for them. And so what happens, I would get into fear because I would forget, thy will be done. God's in charge, not me. My job is to seek his guidance and direction. He's got all the power and all the knowledge. What do I get to? I get to go to AA. That's what I get to do, and help people. And so anyway, after a period of years, I added the next 2 paragraphs on working with others to my morning meditation, because if my primary purpose is to stay sober and help another alcoholic, then this tells me what I need to do. This practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics that work when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. And if I do that, the next paragraph, I get the promises. Life will take on new meaning to watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and each other is the bright spot of our lives. That's when y'all come on and we're meeting. As we come on, hi, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. That's the bright spot of our lives. You know, and we are walking in Walmart and see a home group member. Hey, what are you? You know, it's amazing. And a newcomer in my group, you have to be fast to get the newcomer, because I got 2 other guys that one I sponsored, he sponsored the other guy, and if I'm not quick, they got him before me. And I used to get them all the time. A guy said, I want a sponsor. I said, you got one, and I got it. You know. But they're quicker than me now, which is good. They understand. And what is my job as a sponsor, and through prayer and meditation, doing this and doing through the steps, is so that sponsee can have that spiritual awakening as a result of doing this, and then they can carry that message to somebody else. And that's one of the first things that I ask people: are they willing to work with others? Like I did with my sponsor. He said that, am I willing to do that? Because it says in a doctor's opinion as part of his rehabilitation. And I told him I didn't know how. He said, I didn't ask if you knew how. He said, are you willing to do it? And I said, I'll do whatever you tell me to do to stay sober. And pretty much I followed his directions all the time. There was a couple of times I'd tell me not to talk in meetings for a little bit. And hell, I just go across town, talk in meetings, you know. And the AA police would turn me in. and I'd get caught. And he knew that I was talking, and I didn't know squat about what I was talking about. I was talking about some step I'd never worked. You know, it's always fun to hear. I hadn't worked that step, but, you know, and he said, there's nothing. He says, you know, there's a one way you can guarantee that the group, those that you go to, those groups will know you're a newcomer. There's one thing. They can guess about it, or you can talk and they will know for sure you're a newcomer. And I'm like, so he got me to kind of shut up and listen. And he told me AA is where we talk about the solution of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, you got a problem, you bring it to me, we'll take it through the steps, we'll work on that. And if I don't have experience, we'll find somebody that has experience and we'll go through that together. And then you'll be able to help somebody else. You see, if I wasn't an alcoholic, I couldn't help an alcoholic. If I didn't have that experience, I couldn't do it. If I didn't have that experience, like the book talks about, where that I didn't believe in God, and then what happened, I had those spiritual awakenings along the way, and I came to believe in a power greater than myself, who I choose to call God today. And what if it was given to me without your direction, without AA's direction, I wouldn't have that today. I'm grateful. I hate to say it. I'm grateful to be an alcoholic, because if I wouldn't have had the life I have. Helen and I've been married 55 years, 17 drinking, and 38 sober together. And we got kids, and we got 6 grandkids that have never seen us take a drink. And maybe they don't have to, but I don't know. Maybe they will, but I want AA to be here for sure. And so anyway, I'm not sure where my time is. How am I doing on time?
You got about 10 minutes.
Oh, 10 minutes. Okay. Well, I encourage the guys that I sponsor, especially if they're in a relationship, to do prayer and meditation with their partner or their spouse. I encourage them to invite their wives, like it says in the big book. I encourage them to invite them into that. Don't push it, don't force it, just invite. It's like somebody offer if they would like to go through the steps. If they say no, it's not important. If they say, yeah, we'll get started. If they say no, it's like offering a cup of coffee. Would you like a cup of coffee? If you say no, it doesn't offend me. If somebody doesn't want what I have, it doesn't offend me either. Why would I be offended? That'd be just pure ego. And I'm not possessive of sponsees, people that I sponsor, because a lot of those guys have gone on and moved, and I've moved, and they found other people, and it works just well. And we're still very close. I have people that I don't sponsor anymore that I'm very close with today. And what I encourage them is they go out and build the fellowship around them that they desire. And part of that is sharing this big book with them in the 12 and 12. I have a group of men that every year but one for the last 38 years, we've started the beginning of the big book and go through it. When it says do something, we do it. Other than one year when I moved, we didn't do it. I'm still doing it on Zoom, even though during COVID. We'd get up and line up on Zoom and start at the beginning of the book, read it. When it says do something, we did it. And I mean, that's what it's there for. Why not follow it? And so that's what we do. And we share experience on what we've learned with whatever step it is. We have a men's retreat that I do every year where we get somebody out of state and somebody in state to put it on. And they come and we go to Pettigene Mountain and we go up there. And one of the things that these people bring is they all work with other alcoholics because we want to know what can we do better to help the still suffering alcoholic. And that's just some of the things that we're willing to spend the time on. And, you know, we have people that ask us to sponsor and we start out and we show them this is what we do. And they don't want to do that. It's very difficult sometimes. I'm saddened by some of the things that I see in AA today. Not that they weren't there when I was early in AA. I don't know that. I know that I wasn't. I never argue with my sponsor about anything. There's no debate. I can either live or die. And I chose to live, and so I listened to him. And you know, for me to run my own life, I'm being sponsored by a fool. You know, I don't care how long I'm sober. I understand that if I sponsor me, I'm being sponsored by a fool because my thinking can shift. I mean, look, I got a brain that says, let's have a drink. And I say, okay. I mean, that's not proof enough that I don't trust my own thinking. So what do? Is I show them and share with them how I established my relationship with God and how I spend time with God morning and night and also through the day. Conscious contact with God. You know, prayer without ceasing. It's a ideal. And none of those ideals, all of our principles are ideals, and those principles we cannot live to 100% perfection. It's just no way. But they're goals to try to strive to be a better person. They try, as the step 6 says in the 12 and 12, to try and grow in the likeness as image of my Creator. And that's what we try to do. And then we try to share that with other people. And one day at a time, we don't have to pick up a drink when we're doing that. And I don't put anything lightweight on not drinking and not picking up the drink. I mean, if we're not drinking, it's difficult. We had a wet drunk at our meeting Sunday night. Been there 3 times. Not willing to do anything. Not interested in the big book. Not interested in anything, but they show up at a meeting drunk and want to babble on and babble on. So we had one of our sober members for a while. She took her outside and they went and talked outside. So they didn't disrupt the meeting anymore. But we got to see the pain of alcoholism. And by the end of the meeting, we got to see the happy, joyous, and free and laughter in the same room. Because we used to live like that. And we have empathy for that person and understanding of that person that can't stop drinking. And what can we do? We can be there when they're ready. And we can ask God to be with them until they get to us, until they're willing. And so what we do is we pray for them. One of the guys that in our group says, hey, what's his name? He went out and he got a 5th out of his trunk after the meeting. What are we going to do about it? And I said, what do you mean? Where are we going to do? Where would you want him to go? He's a drunk. He's probably going to die drunk. But if he keeps coming to this meeting, just maybe, he'll hear something and he might not have to die drunk. There's no way. We want that person. Now, we won't let them disrupt the meeting, but we want them there that maybe they'll hear something from us that can help them. And my spiritual experiences that I had, those strange mental blank spots, that's just some experience that I have. I know a lot of people that have had them. I have good friends of mine that have had much more dramatic spiritual experience than I have. Mine was more the educational variety with a little of these once in a while. And then all of a sudden being able to observe, sitting in a meeting of alcoholics, sitting here tonight, looking at all y'all, sober, you know, by the grace of a loving God. And all we have to do is accept his grace. And then he gave us a plan how to live in the big book. This is a plan how to live our lives. And this is a plan how to spend time with our Creator. You know, that's what this is about, is how do we spend time and develop that relationship with the God of our understanding. And God of our understanding has nothing to do with understanding God. As an infinite, God is infinite. There's no way I can understand God. If I could understand God, I'll be bigger than God. And boy, that's not even close. And over the years, since I've been alive, what I've seen is when the book talks about an infinite God in our big book. And what I've seen through the years is the microscopes get stronger and stronger, things we find are littler and littler. And as the telescopes get bigger and bigger, we find more and more galaxies. And it's like it's infinite, both directions. And for me, there's a higher power that has charge of that. And I don't. I'm here just to be of service to him in whatever he wants. And he gave me y'all to give me the directions how to live, because I did not know how to stop drinking. I did not know how to stop insulting people. I did not know how to stop hurting people. And I didn't want to be that person that I brought up 3 kids in alcoholism. And I was not a good parent. I was not home a lot. I mean, I just wasn't there. And they didn't know who's coming through the door. Is it the mean dad or the happy dad? They don't know. And, it took me to get sober and go through the steps and look at my history to find out those things about me. And today, when my grandkids were young, my kids let me keep their kids. That's Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's the power of God. That isn't about me. I could have never changed that, because they saw me in my drunkenness. And my grandkids are wonderful. I'm not ashamed to share the big book. I'm not ashamed to share my story with them, because they're going to have some of those experiences. And I have showed my children what not to do, as well as y'all showed me what to do. So they've seen both sides of that. My oldest son actually became a minister and was in ministry for years. And both of my boys are good fathers. And the reason they're good fathers is they had Alateen and Al-Anons who were willing to help them when Helen and I were not capable, when we were new. And we thank God for putting those people in our lives, because if it wasn't for them, I don't know what had happened to my children. We're so fortunate to have those children blessed. I have one that just got an RN and is practicing nursing in a cardiac step-down unit. And I have my second oldest is doing acting in the Washington, D.C. area, and he's got 1 semester left in computer engineering or computer science. And I got 4 others, all of them out of high school. I don't have any babies anymore, so I'm waiting on grandbabies or great grandbabies now. My dad and I just took a trip to Lafayette to visit with those kids, my son, his wife, and the 2 of his grandkids. My dad is 97 years old. He rode 7 hours in the car to go be with them. He's a World War II veteran, was on the USS Mississippi. They got hit by a kamikaze plane in the turret he was walking into, and all the 22 guys in front of him died. And yet he lived through that. And the only thing I can do is say that he's around to help other people, and he's helped other people all his life, and including me. And by showing me a spiritual way to live, the way y'all showed me what to do, and where I could accept other people the way they do it. And I think that's a definite result of prayer and meditation, and live and let live. So anyway, I'm glad to be here tonight, and I'm glad to. I probably got off the topic a little bit, but I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know y'all do as well. So that's it for now. Thanks.